It was supposed to be a perfect wedding, held at a sun-drenched vineyard resort in Napa Valley, with white roses spiraling up the altar and rows of guests seated neatly in linen-covered chairs. A soft instrumental quartet played in the background. The air smelled like champagne and expectation. Nathan Carter, dressed in a tailored navy suit, stood at the altar, holding his breath. He was a beloved high school teacher, known for his calm, thoughtful nature. Today, he was about to marry a powerful PR executive whose career shimmered brighter than her diamond necklace. The minister cleared his throat to begin the vows. Guests leaned forward, cameras lifted. Somewhere, a child began to cry, but no one turned to look. Then, suddenly, a small figure tore down the aisle. A boy, 6 years old, wearing a wrinkled button-up shirt and untied shoes. His cheeks were streaked with tears, his tiny chest heaving with panic. Before anyone could stop him, he was screaming, "Please don't marry him. Please don't marry my uncle. If you still love him, please save him." The world stood still. Murmurs broke out like raindrops on glass. The minister froze mid-sentence. The bride turned sharply. Nathan's face drained of color. But the boy Milo kept standing there in front of everyone, fists clenched, trembling. Some recognized him. Milo was Nathan's nephew, the son of his late sister, who had died in a car accident 2 years ago. Since then, Nathan had been Milo's legal guardian, raising him alone with quiet devotion. But few people knew the storm behind that soft-spoken man. Nathan wasn't just facing a wedding, he was facing a boadu. Milo's maternal grandparents, his sister's in-laws, had filed a custody suit, arguing that Nathan was unfit to raise a child. Their reasons were thinly veiled. Nathan was unmarried, a gay man, not a traditional role model. And now, they had lawyers, money, and the courts listening to them. To win, Nathan needed to appear settled, stable, married. But Milo had seen something deeper. He had seen Nathan cry quietly after meetings with his lawyer. He had caught him staring at an old photograph. And one day, Milo had climbed onto a chair to open a drawer Nathan always kept locked. That's when he found a letter and a name. Luca Moretti had been Nathan's partner, long before any of this had started. But 2 years ago, around the same time Milo moved in, Luca had disappeared from their lives. No explanation, no goodbye, until now. Because the man Milo had screamed to the one standing stunned at the edge of the crowd, clutching an unopened wedding invitation, was Luca. He wasn't supposed to be here. His name hadn't been on the guest list. The invitation had arrived anonymously. It had no return address, just a short note. "He's not okay, please come." Luca had nearly ignored it. He hadn't seen Nathan in years. But something about the envelope, the handwriting, the timing, it pulled at him. So he came, quietly, unannounced, standing in the back, hoping no one would notice. And now the entire wedding had stopped for him. Nathan stared at Milo in disbelief, then followed his gaze to the man standing just beyond the crowd. His eyes widened, his lips trembled. The bride's grip on her bouquet loosened. The music stopped. Someone lowered a camera. It wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a reckoning. And Milo, barely tall enough to reach the microphone, was the only one brave enough to say what no adult dared to. Because sometimes a child can see through the lies grown-ups tell themselves to survive. And sometimes the one who crashes the wedding isn't trying to ruin love. He's trying to save it. This is Heart's story, where unexpected love, family, and truth unfold in every chapter. If this touched you, follow us now and stay for the rest of this unforgettable story. Luca Moretti hadn't meant to come. The invitation had arrived in a plain white envelope, unmarked except for his name. Inside, a single card, elegant, floral-edged, announced the wedding of Nathan Carter to a woman he didn't know. At the bottom, instead of a signature, just a quiet note. "He's not okay. Please come." There was no return address, no explanation, no mention of who had sent it. At first, Luca thought it was a mistake. Or worse, a cruel joke. Why would he be invited to Nathan's wedding? After all this time, he tossed the envelope aside. Days passed. He kept trying to ignore it, but something about the handwriting, rounded, hesitant, almost childlike, clung to his thoughts. So on the morning of the ceremony, without RSVP, without a gift, Luca drove to Napa. He arrived late, parked far from the main hall, and slipped in quietly through the side. He had planned to leave before anyone noticed. But the moment he heard a child's voice screaming his name, everything stopped. Milo had found him. Somehow, after the disruption, guests had been asked to wait in the garden while the wedding was momentarily delayed. Champagne kept flowing. Conversations turned uneasy. No one knew what to make of what just happened, except Milo. He knew exactly what he was doing. During the awkward hush of the reception that followed, Milo crept away from his aunt's grip and disappeared. A few minutes later, he was standing next to Luca near the vineyard's stone wall. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He simply looked up and said, "I read the letters, the ones in the drawer under his bed. My uncle wrote about you. A lot. He still loves you, but he's scared." Luca didn't know how to answer. He hadn't spoken to Nathan in 2 years. Their last conversation hadn't even been a real goodbye. More like a door slammed shut without a sound. The breakup had been quiet, without a fight. Nathan had become distant, brittle. He stopped answering texts, canceled visits, and then one day disappeared entirely. Luca hadn't known why. Until now, though, the boy kept talking, his words careful, rehearsed. He said you were the only person who made him feel brave, but then something happened, and he stopped being brave. He started being scared instead. Luca felt the weight of those words settle in, not from the mouth of an adult therapist, but from a child caught in the middle of a war no one dared admit was happening. He asked Milo how he found him. The boy blinked. "I saw your name on the envelope. I asked the delivery man at the school office. Then I hid the invitation in my backpack and waited. I just wanted someone to stop this. Someone who used to make him happy." When Luca finally walked back toward the wedding hall, Nathan was standing just outside the doorway, alone, tie loosened, shoulders hunched. Their eyes met, and for a long, charged moment, no one said anything. There was no anger, no explanations, only recognition. Nathan didn't deny anything, didn't ask why Luca was there. He didn't even ask about the envelope. He just looked at Milo, then at Luca, and said nothing at all. The bride didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply turned away and handed her bouquet to the wedding planner. Then, wordlessly, she stepped into her limousine. The ceremony was officially postponed. The guests slowly dispersed, but Nathan remained standing there, surrounded by silence. Luca didn't follow him inside. He didn't need to. He had already heard the most honest voice at the wedding, and it came from a child who had no reason to lie. Because truth, when spoken by someone too young to hide, is the only kind that demands to be heard. The morning after the wedding fell apart, Napa Valley was unusually quiet. The string lights over the courtyard still dangled, as if waiting for a celebration that never came. Chairs were still arranged in perfect rows, untouched. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Nathan sat alone on the back porch of the guest house. His tie was gone. The sleeves of his dress shirt rolled up, stained faintly with dust from yesterday's chaos. His eyes were red. His hands gripped a half-empty mug that had gone cold hours ago. When Luca arrived, there was no doorbell, no dramatic entrance, just a quiet knock on the wooden frame of the open door, and then footsteps, familiar in their weight, approaching from behind. Nathan didn't turn around right away. When he finally did, it wasn't with surprise. It was with resignation. He gestured toward the empty seat across from him. Luca sat, wordless. The air between them stretched taut. Eventually, Nathan spoke. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." His voice cracked, not from emotion, but exhaustion. Years of pretending wore down a person in strange ways. Luca didn't interrupt. He let the silence ask the question Nathan had been avoiding. The engagement, it wasn't real. Nathan's confession didn't come with tears. It came like a weight sliding off a cliff. Her name is Julia. We met at a charity gala a year ago. She knew I wasn't straight. She also knew I was fighting for custody. When the lawyers from my sister's in-laws started circling, saying I wasn't a proper guardian for Milo, I panicked. He rubbed his temples, as if trying to erase the memory. They said I was unfit, that no court would leave a child with a single gay man. I didn't believe them at first. But then they dug up my old school records, photos of us. Hints that I'd been under internal review years ago after a student's parent accused me of inappropriate influence just because I had a photo of you on my desk. He looked up for the first time. His eyes weren't asking for forgiveness. They were asking to be understood. I lost my job after that, quietly. No headlines, just pressure. I moved here, got a new position, stayed low. But when my sister died and Milo came to live with me, I knew it was only a matter of time. Luca leaned back, his jaw clenched, trying not to show what was rising in him. Anger hurt betrayal, but Nathan wasn't done. Julia offered to help. She's been through something similar. Her brother came out and lost custody of his own son. She said if we staged the relationship just long enough to show the court I could offer a stable, nuclear home, the odds would shift. He exhaled, long and slow. We planned everything, down to the wedding, the dress, the guest list, all of it, except Milo. Nathan let the words hang. He's smart, he sees things. He found the drawer where I kept our letters, your postcards, even the ticket from our last trip to Seattle. I think he knew long before I was ready to admit it. Luca said nothing for a long time, but Milo's voice echoed in his head. He still loves you, but he's scared. Then Nathan's tone shifted, lower, softer. I didn't stop loving you, Luca. I stopped believing I was allowed to. I thought letting you go was protecting you from the mess I was becoming. I didn't think anyone could love a man who was so afraid of himself. Luca stood. He didn't storm out. He didn't scream, but he didn't stay, either. Nathan remained seated, watching him go again. Only this time, the door didn't slam. It clicked shut gently, almost apologetically, like a goodbye spoken by someone who still cared, but had nothing left to say. Later that evening, as the sky dimmed, Milo approached Luca near the edge of the vineyard. He didn't carry any new secrets. No dramatic letters this time, just a drawing crumpled from his pocket of 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a tree. He pointed at the middle one. That's my uncle. That's me. That's you. Luca looked down, and for the first time that day, he smiled, because deep down, even a child knew. Some families are drawn in pencil, but love makes them permanent. Luca didn't plan on staying another night in Napa. He had packed light just enough for a wedding he never should have attended, just enough to leave without looking back. But something about the way Milo looked at him with quiet hope made him hesitate. So he found a small inn off the main road, unpacked slowly, and told himself he'd leave by morning. He couldn't sleep. The room was small but warm, the kind of space where memories had no corners to hide in. On the nightstand lay a program from the wedding, unopened. Tucked beneath it, a folded page had slipped loose from a book Milo had pressed into his hand earlier, before running back into the vineyard. Luca thought it was another drawing, but when he unfolded the paper, his hands began to shake. It wasn't from Milo. It was a letter, handwritten, torn at the edge like it had been pulled from a notebook in haste, and at the top in Nathan's familiar script. One word stood alone, Luca. The date scrawled in the corner was from 2 years ago. I don't know how to say goodbye, so instead, I'll say the things I was too much of a coward to say when I should have. I loved you. I still do. But I was drowning. Every day, I woke up with this tightness in my chest that no one could see, not even you. I thought if I let you go, I could protect you from my past, from my silence, from a future where I couldn't promise you anything. I thought I was saving you, but I was really just running away. The ink was smudged in places, as if it had been folded and reopened more times than Nathan would admit. They told me a man like me shouldn't raise a child, that I was broken, that I'd ruin him. I started to believe them. So I built walls. I pretended I didn't need love. I told myself being lonely was safer than being seen. At the bottom, one final sentence, underlined, barely legible from the pressure of the pen. But if you ever read this, just know, the drawer was never locked to keep you out. It was to keep the pain in. Luca didn't realize he was crying until the letter blurred. He wiped his eyes, folded it carefully, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Something had shifted, not fully healed, not yet, but shifted. The next morning, instead of leaving, he drove to the law office listed on Milo's custody documents. Nathan hadn't asked him to go. Milo didn't know he had. But Luca walked into the firm's lobby with steady steps, letter in his pocket, and a new purpose in his chest. He asked to speak during the upcoming mediation. When the session began later that week, Luca sat across from the attorneys representing Milo's maternal grandparents. Nathan sat beside his own counsel, shoulders drawn but head high. The mediator welcomed Luca's presence but asked him to clarify his involvement. He stood, took a breath, and pressed play. The audio came from a recording Milo had accidentally triggered weeks earlier during a tense conversation at home. A conversation where Nathan had spoken with his own lawyer about the mounting pressure to present a heterosexual household. But what mattered more was the second recording, a private discussion between the opposing legal team and Milo's grandfather caught in a moment of unguarded candor. If he wants to play house with a fake bride just to impress the court, fine. It proves our point even more. This isn't a fit environment. A real man wouldn't need to pretend. When the tape ended, the silence in the room was louder than any gavel. Luca stood again. They're judging him not because he's a bad guardian, but because he's not the version of a man they approve of. But Milo's not a case file. He's a boy who already lost his mother, and the only person who didn't walk out on him was Nathan. He paused, his voice lowered. People think marriage proves stability, but sometimes the truest kind of stability is love that doesn't perform for the world, the kind that tucks a child in every night, the kind that shows up, even when it's scared. No one clapped. No one needed to. Truth, spoken plainly, has its own weight. And for the first time since the custody battle began, the air in the room shifted, not toward legal strategy, but toward humanity. The courtroom felt colder than it should have been, not from the air conditioning, but from what it held: months of arguments, documentation, accusations. And now a little boy standing in front of a judge, holding a stuffed dog with a missing ear. Milo had been prepped by lawyers. He'd been told to answer only what was asked, to speak clearly, but no one had prepared the room for what he chose to say. The judge asked his name. He answered. Then she asked, softly, if he felt safe living with his uncle. Milo didn't hesitate. Yes, because he's the only one who didn't leave. A few people shifted in their seats. Nathan, sitting behind him, wiped his eyes. The judge leaned forward. Do you understand what it means to live with your uncle forever? Milo nodded. Then his voice cracked, but his words were clear. I already lost my mom. I don't want to lose him. Too, he always picks me up from school, even when he's tired. He makes toast like Mom used to. He hugs me when I have bad dreams, and when I feel sad, he tells me it's okay to cry, even if I'm a boy. He looked over his shoulder at Nathan. I don't care if he's married or not. I care that he loves me. The room fell silent, the kind of silence that follows something true. Nathan stood slowly. His hands were shaking. He didn't ask to speak, but the judge allowed it, He walked to the front, no suit, no tie, just his voice, raw, human, unpolished. I tried to do what the world wanted. I tried to fake a life that looked acceptable, but every time I looked at Milo, I remembered why I can't live a lie. I can't teach him to be brave if I'm too afraid to be myself. He looked at the opposing attorneys, then at the judge. If the only way to keep Milo is to betray who I am, then I'll lose. But if there's even a chance I can love him honestly and still be enough, then I'll fight, not for my image, for him. Then he turned, met Luca's gaze across the room. If there's still space for me in your heart, I'm sorry for pushing you out, for being too scared to stay. Luca didn't answer with words. He stood, walked to Milo, took the boy's hand in his, then turned to Nathan, and without breaking eye contact, said only this: family doesn't have to be perfect. Just real dinoid. If it's the three of us, I'm in. The judge asked for a recess before ruling, but no one in that room needed a verdict to feel the outcome. Later, as they walked out into the golden afternoon sun, Milo swung between Nathan and Luca, laughter returning to his voice like a song remembered. The vineyard hills stretched beyond them, not as witnesses to a wedding that never happened, but to a family that had finally begun. And somewhere in a quiet hotel room, an envelope sat on a nightstand, the original wedding invitation, now open. At the bottom, a handwritten note in ink just faded enough to miss if you weren't looking closely. He deserves someone who loves him as he is. I hope you still do. Julia. She had seen everything, and without saying a word, she had made the space for someone else to speak louder. Because love, real love, doesn't always need a stage. Sometimes, it just needs a chance. What would you do if someone gave up everything, just to live truthfully? This is Heart Story, where love, loss, and courage find their voice. Subscribe to hear the stories that stay with you, long after the screen fades.